and welcome to another Cliff's List webinar interview. Today, my guest is an old friend, TJ. TJ is someone I've known for many years, and he's contributed some really great stuff in the past to the Cliff's List newsletter. And I guess I've seen him in a variety of situations, often with Johnny Saporno. And I think he's now moved from I don't know if it's Sweden or the Netherlands to Las Vegas, which is quite a shift. In any event, TJ, why don't you tell the people watching this and listening to it a little bit about yourself for those who don't know anything about you?
Sure. So my name is TJ, or at least that's what I go by in the States. I'm from, my real name is Torkel Guttormsen. And so TJ Guttormsen tends to be what I go by here, and it's helpful for people. I'm from Norway originally, but I've lived in Vegas full-time now for about 3 years. Before that, I used to come to Vegas once a year for many, many years. I think the first time I came out was in 2010 to teach at the Successfulness Workshop, which I believe was where I met you, Cliff, for the first time when you came to hang out with us there. And I've been a coach and an instructor for over 10 years now. I launched my own company in 2009, and before that, I had spent a lot of time working with Johnny Saporno, who you mentioned. I also did a little work with Adam Lyons. I did some work with Zan Perrion and Steve Pickus, and that whole kind of group of people became. I was lucky enough to call them friends even before I launched my own company, and so that was wonderful. For the first few years, I was very Norway focused, and Norway is a fairly small country, so once you get things rolling there, it's really easy to just kind of keep it going. So in Norway, my company quickly grew to be the most profiled and the busiest one, and I've done over 100 national media appearances. I've had radio segment shows, my own radio segment. I've had newspaper columns. So I've kind of done that whole thing. I did books and so on and so forth. So Norway is my home base and where I did most of my work. But I've worked internationally for many years. And now, obviously, since I'm in Vegas, I'm focusing more and more on the international and more specifically the American market. But I mean, I coach people from all over. Right now, my client list is all Scandinavian to Australian to American to Indian. It's a whole thing.
Do you notice a difference between the nationalities in terms of their issues as it relates to their, any issues they may have with regards to dealing with women?
Well, it's funny. The issues tend to be the same, but their reasoning behind their issues can vary. And so I find that most men across the world have kind of the same issues. The typical one would be just the simpleness of the approach, like how to even get started in conversations. And then there's, escalation or tension and all of these things that too many men across the world have challenges with. And but it's funny, like in Australia or the US, kind of saying hi to a stranger in the supermarket and wishing people a good afternoon and stuff like that is a normal thing to do. While in Norway, for example, Scandinavian countries, you hardly even do that. Like strangers don't interact. So in Norway, people tend to tell me, I'm just not used to it. It's so weird. Nobody does it. It's so unnatural. How can I get comfortable with it? While in the US, people are like, well, yeah, it's I can do that kind of stuff, but how do you connect with someone? Like, how do you get that conversation to move on from there? All of them have issues getting the conversations really started. In Scandinavia, they tend to think it's that first sentence, that first those first sounds that's the problem. While in the US and Australia and other countries, the first sounds are not too bad. Everyone can do that indirect, excuse me, do you have the time type thing. But then how do we get it going from there? And so you kind of have to help people get rid of the excuses that they've been programmed with, because we look at society around us and we try to use what we see as explanations for why we don't have what we want to have. So for the Americans, for the Australians, I have to show them or help them get over those excuses of why they can't keep the conversation going after exchanging pleasantries. While in Norway, I just need to get them over the idea that Norwegians don't talk to each other. So that's weird. And it all comes back to the same thing. They might be explaining it with different models, but all in all, everyone has the same problems. And they lock themselves in by looking at their culture and using their culture to explain their challenges.
So what do you actually do to get them to overcome these challenges? When you think about it, I mean, it's logical. You just tell them go and talk to people, but this is a psychological barriers that people have. How do you work on those?
So I tend to have a slightly different approach than many of my colleagues, especially those who work specifically in the seduction community. I also do have some background in this. I have 2 degrees in psychology and I 1 degree in pedagogics, which is basically the science of learning. And so I tend to be less technique based than others. A lot of people kind of give techniques and go out and do this and practice that. While I like to go deeper, I always say I like to cure the disease, not the symptom. And so the symptom in this case, if we're going to take the approach as an example, of course, there are many issues and challenges that people have. But in this case, it's usually not that people don't know what to do or even how to do it. Most people these days have read enough or seen enough videos on how to approach or what to say. And that information is easy to come by. So it's never the how or the what, but it's more of the getting over the internal blockers, or realizing rather than that the blockers that we have, the fear, for example, of walking over to someone, or even fear of escalating or whatever it is, isn't actually coming from the girl or the situation or anything like that. It's only coming from our own mind. It's our own mind that creates it. And so we can look at it in many different ways. Most people tend to look at what the fear that their mind creates as something real and a warning not to do something, while other people get really good at seeing it as just, something, their ego and their mind trying to stop them, and it's a challenge. While other people again see it as, well, I'm just making this shit up. Just like I can sit down, I can think about a ghost without getting afraid. I can have scary thoughts, or I can think about, I'm personally terrified of scorpions. Now I can sit there and I can think about a scorpion without freaking out. Just like we can go out and we can see a girl and we can get nervous about the girl, but when we realize that it's my mind is creating the nerves, we can overcome it and we can go do it anyway. I can walk out on the street and I can see a scorpion. I don't need to run away because I know the scorpion is not going to chase me. I know that I'm not actually afraid of the scorpion. I'm afraid of the scenarios that I make up in my mind of what happens if I pick it up and it stings me. Well, just don't pick it up. It's fine. Walk over to a girl. We imagine, what if she throws a drink in my face if I'm being a dick? Well, don't be a dick. Go over and be nice to her. If she throws a drink in your face, something's wrong somewhere in her world. So I go deep and I help people get over those ideas that our fears and our thoughts in the moment actually matter, actually tells us something about the world. It doesn't actually tell us anything about the world. It only tells us about our own thinking. And once we solve that, everything starts becoming easy. And now we can play with the techniques. Now we can have, direct or indirect approaches or all that other stuff. But until we get over those issues that we make up ourselves, we're going to be locked into our own fears and our own imagination of what's going to go wrong.
And what actually do you find is the most common issue with women that men deal with you for? Like, what's is it just the approach, or is it more relationships, or what is what do you end up spending most of your time coaching about?
It's usually the battle of the sexes, so the fight between the sexes that a lot of people think exists. And so it spans from, just the approach to relationships and everything in between. But what I tend to get, because so my company name back home in Norway is Genuine Connections. And I've always been very, focused on, let's have genuine conversations. Let's drop the games, let's drop the systems and the scripts and all of that, and actually learn how to connect with other people. And so the clients that come to me very often are curious about how we create these genuine, authentic conversations with someone who they, in many cases, have been kind of taught or programmed to see as the enemy, or as at least as someone that they have to win over or they have to compete to. People talk about, you have to have high value. You have to have higher value than the girl for her to like you. Well, once you start doing that, now it's a competition. So I end up spending a lot of time helping guys see that, there's no battle here. There's no competition. We all want the same thing. We all want to enjoy ourselves and have a wonderful life. And we want to do it together. But the moment one of us starts competing with the other or trying to battle the other in any way, now we're in this conflict and we have to play all the games. While if we approach it as a dance or collaboration or as an exploration to see how the two of us will relate to each other or not, now we can have fun with it. Even when we meet someone that we're not a good match for, we can still have a really enjoyable experience having that conversation and realizing that this is not going to go anywhere. So I work a lot with bridging that gap for men and letting them get rid of any bitterness they have or any frustrations or all of these ideas that have been put in their head that they have to somehow win women over or show women that they're good enough or any of this, because it's really not about that. It's about approaching women and treating them as they're a human being just like we are, being curious about them and showing them who we are. And once the games go away and once we stop caring about the women who try to play games with us and do what we want to do anyway, things become really easy and fun. Because when you meet women who are taking your lead, and as we know, women tend to take the man's lead, and they take your lead when you're just wanting to connect and be present with them, well, then we're going to have a wonderful conversation. And when we meet a woman who's too caught up in the game mentality and wants to play games and want to manipulate, and we see right through that, well, then we can enjoy that just as entertainment and then move on and find someone who's going to work much better with us in a relationship. So I'm working on the underlying causes rather than techniques, but it usually starts with people coming to me because they don't have enough women in their life, and it's either because they're not approaching or they have a lot of conversations but they don't escalate. Those two things are really quick to solve, and I never work with clients for less than 4 months. So we usually start out working on that, and after that we switch into the bigger picture and really start going deep on helping them truly connect with basically all women that they meet.
I seem to remember that you were very coordinated in your life with women, in that you had a very open relationship structure, where you had I guess a lot of different women at the same time in your life. And I believe you've, I guess, gotten married in the last little while, and that's sort of, I don't know how that has changed anything, or if it really hasn't changed anything, but I just figured I would get your current, I guess, overall picture on how you look at relationships today.
Absolutely. I forgot to say anything personal about me in my intro, so sorry about that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I also did get married, and that didn't change much because we're polyamorous, and so I'm still meeting women, and we're also meeting women together at times. Now, my frequency of meeting women has gone down, I will admit that, because she's an amazing woman, and it's really nice to hang out with her. So now my major interest is to meet women that will like her too, and that she will like. And so my frequency gets down, but I'm still seeing women because I am a polyamorous person by nature. I'm not looking for monogamy in my life, and that has never worked for me. A lot of people, when I say that, think I'm against monogamy. I'm not. If the people watching this, if monogamy is what you want, that's awesome. Go for it. But yeah, so I've for the last 15 years or so, I've not had a monogamous relationship, and for a long time, I only had what I call casual open relationships or multiple open relationships, which was I wasn't in I didn't have a title relationship with the women. I wasn't their boyfriend. They weren't my girlfriend. We were playmates. We were, friends who would socialize and hang out and do the things that we liked doing together. And we also had an intimate sexual component to our friendship that we could play with whenever we wanted. And so I had a variety of different partners. I had some that were very, very close, and they would be my best friends. We'd hang out all the time. They would be at the same parties as me. They were part of my social group, and it was, a really close relationship. We were best friends, but we also had the sexual relationship together. And I had other women that were more removed, that I saw less frequently, that I wasn't that close with, but we just had fun together. And whenever one of us wanted to see the other one, we just text each other and go meet up and hang out for the night or whatever. And eventually I started with my wife. I went deeper, and we went into the title relationship with girlfriend, and but I still kept my other relationships that were active. And I'm very much about creating the kind of relationships that you want and that works for you, rather than trying to fit into the kind of relationship that everyone else is doing, or even worse, trying to figure out what relationship women want to have with you and try to adapt to that. None of those work. I've seen too many people over the last decade or so try that. So to me, my philosophy has always been, be very honest and upfront about what you have to offer in a relationship. Some women will back away from that. Some women will be, no, I don't want that. I want, kids and monogamy and the whole thing. And I go, wow, that's wonderful. I hope you get that. Go have fun. We can still be friends. But there are so many women who are looking for other things. They just need to meet a man who is confident enough in himself to tell her that, who can stand for it, and who will, create a safe space for her to come play in. And so I've had relationships with women who were interested in monogamy and the kids and that whole thing. But while they were waiting for that guy, they could play with me because I was safe and it was easy. I've also had relationships with plenty of women who wasn't interested in that, at least not at this point in their life, and they could be my partners. I've had many, many relationships, and you're going to have to look hard and long to find anyone who's upset or has anything bad to say, because the first thing I did always and still do is just tell women exactly, here's my thing, here's what I have to offer. Now that I'm married, the first thing I talk to girls about when I meet them is my wife. I wear a wedding ring, partly to make sure that everyone knows. So my philosophy of women, as you asked for, is or relationships, very, very simple. Decide what you want, decide what's right for you, and then learn how to communicate that to women in a way that explains to them what you're offering them, rather than what you're not offering them. When you can do that properly, when you can have that conversation, then sky's the limit. You can basically create whatever relationships you have. You just have to go out there and find the women who you really enjoy and who's also open for it. And it becomes much, much easier than most people think.
I think a lot of guys would love to be able to transform their lives into a little more, open situations, but they have their own mental blocks about doing this, and so they're conflicted. If you have had to deal with that sort of situation, how would you deal with it?
In fact, I'm working with one of my long-term clients now. We're 6 months into his coaching. When we started working together, he had very little women in his life. He very few women in his life. He didn't have much of a dating relationship. He was a socially competent guy and had friends, and he enjoyed, I didn't have problems having conversations and all this, but escalating or creating relationships and all that was really difficult for him. And also approaching strange women was hard. So he spent a few months on that, and he started getting really good at it, and he started meeting women all the time. And then he had an issue, because he had been raised with the very strict traditional monogamy type morals, and he felt bad. He told me, I really don't want openness. I don't want multiple women. I just want to find one woman that I will really enjoy being with. And so, okay, that's great. He wasn't opposed to one night stands, but anything ongoing should be monogamous. So he started seeing this girl, and less than a week after seeing her, he had met another girl at a concert, taken her number, and gone on a date with her. He came to my session, and he was all upset about it because he felt really bad. And we saw this dichotomy, this fight inside of him between what he really wanted, which was having open and honest relationship and not have to feel bad about seeing several girls, and what he'd been taught that he should do, what society around him was telling him. So what we did to work on that, which I do with everyone to work on that, is really go in and look at his values. Where are his values coming from? Is he impacted by society's morals, which is what everyone else seems to agree on is the right thing or the wrong thing? Or is he being controlled by his own personal ethics, what he thinks is right or wrong? The people who have issues because they want something, but they feel bad about it, they're usually they have a conflict between their morals and their ethics. The morals being what they've been taught to think, and their ethics what they really truly want and what's right for them. And so once we can figure out what the difference is and see what's actually right for them personally and what's right for society, now we can do some social deprogramming, and we can work on values and making them more confident and more comfortable with themselves. So this particular client of mine learned the method I was talking about honesty, and he kept practicing that. And as we explored his ethics and found that it wasn't that he thought it was wrong to see multiple women, it was that he thought that if he saw multiple women, those women would judge him for it, because society as a whole wouldn't accept him seeing multiple women. Once he started talking to the women that he was seeing about this, they had no issues with this at all. They weren't trying to marry this guy anyway. And so the issue went away. I got an email from him 2 weeks ago. We talk every other week. So I'm talking to him in 2 days. I got an email from him right after his last session. He'd gone out on a date and he'd been with one of these girls, and he felt great because they had a great conversation where he explained his issues. And she went, well, that's not an issue because you've been honest with me from the start. This is fine. So for those watching this and thinking, the idea of it sounds nice, but I could never see multiple women. Well, figure out, are you saying that because you could never see them because of what you've been told by other people is right or wrong? Or are you saying that because you genuinely don't want to and it just sounds cool? If you genuinely don't want to, that's great. Don't do it. If you're saying it just because you're afraid of what society or your friends or your parents or the girls or whatever will think of you if you see multiple women, well, the solution is to be honest with the women that you meet about it, and then it becomes very, very easy to manage.
I think that it's not sort of difficult to perceive that you want multiple women. I think it's difficult to get into a mindset of kind of accepting it. And I think people, like you said, I think they think that what someone else is going to think about them is really affects really what they how they behave. But I think it's not necessarily the case. And um, I think a lot of the guys watching this are interested in trying to figure out how do they resolve these conflicts that they're feeling. For example, when you're uh, you're dating somebody, and they're not comfortable, for example, with the idea of the other person having the same freedom that they have.
Mm.
And I assume that that's something that you don't have any issues with personally. But I've certainly seen an interesting subset of guys out there who do have multiple women who basically what's good for the goose is not good for the gander, and
Right.
they're able to keep. I guess the women have to sort of restrict their behaviors, whereas the guys retain their freedom.
Mm.
Um, I guess I'm curious what you think about that sort of perspective.
Right. So what you're describing there is polygamy. Is the technical word for it. So polygamy being, the man can have several women in his life, but the women can only have one man. And it's, it's definitely a thing. And this is actually what, worldwide, it's not an unusual phenomenon. There's several religions who have this kind of built into them. But the problem in these cases is when the women aren't actively seeking that out. When women get into a relationship in polygamous relationship, and they're not there because that's what they want, but they're there because they want him, and the only way to have him is to accept those terms, that tends to not work out long term. In fact, so far, I've not seen it work out well for people. But if women are choosing into that, and I know women who are very open to that, and I know women who wouldn't mind that at all, they're fine having one man who has multiple partners, but then there are terms and conditions and things that would have to work for them. That's okay. Just like I can be in a relationship with my wife. My wife might have a boyfriend, and I might not see anyone. And in that period of our relationship, I'm seeing her and she's seeing me and someone else. And that's not an issue for me because I'm okay with that. I don't need her to be my only one, and she also does not need me to be that. Of course, in our relationship, I can go out and meet someone, start a relationship with them. If I were to be restricted from doing that, but she was okay having others, well, in order to be comfortable in that relationship, it would have to be my choice, not hers. So men out there who are teaching polygamy or living polygamy, where they're basically talking the women into wanting to be part of his harem and not having their own, they're most of the time either setting themselves up for failure or creating relationships that women are going to be fundamentally not very happy in. But women, when they meet a woman who chooses that, who are fine with it, then that's another story. So it's possible, but just like, most people think they're looking for monogamy, most people who are looking for openness are looking for openness for themselves too. So there's not that many people looking to be, the committed or monogamous one in a non-monogamous relationship. It can work. I never teach how to do it because it has to be, if you get into a relationship with a woman and you say, hey, I'm this and I want to keep meeting others. I'm polyamorous. I'm open. I'm going to keep meeting girls and dating them and having relationships with them. And the girl says, oh, that's cool. You go ahead and do that. I'm going to just be with you. Well, then that's her choice. And that's fine. You can accept that as long as it's genuinely her choice and genuinely something that she wants. And if she ever changes her mind in the future, you have to be open to having that conversation. If not, you are putting many restrictions on her that you're not following yourself. There's going to be an uneven balance in power, if you will, or an uneven fairness, and it's going to grow resentment. And usually that ends up with a bit of an explosion and a bad breakup.
Tell me about, I guess, how you coach guys in terms of the various sticking points that they've got. Like, if they come to you and they've got, issues for, for a variety, I'm sure a variety of issues, whether they're physical ones, such as being too short or too fat or too ugly or whatever or how they perceive themselves, or or issues where they're shy. What's your usual way of dealing with those things?
So I'll tell you an exercise that I do. Of course, this isn't the whole thing, but it's one of the things that I often do in these situations, and it's the identity exercise. So I have people sit down and write down what they think about themselves, like not an essay, but more of a bullet point type thing. After they're done writing those things down, good and bad, I have them sort them out. So you take all the good ones, you put them in one list. Those are awesome. We're gonna, we'll enjoy those and be happy with them. And then you look at the things that you don't like about yourself. Now I need you to split those into two different lists. One of these lists is things I cannot change. My height, for example. I'm not very tall. I'm 5'8" or whatever. If I thought that was an issue, like I used to when I was younger, and I'm from Scandinavia too, the guys are tall. I thought that was an issue. That would go on my things I cannot change list. Things that I can change, like I used to think that I wasn't, spontaneous and creative enough. I wasn't funny enough. I had all of these things that are more social skills than anything else, goes in the other list. So I'm done with this. I have two lists, things I cannot change and things I can change. Now for the cannot changes, I work with my clients to accept these things. And most of the time, that's not about accepting them. That's realizing that what you put on that list is bullshit. Height doesn't actually matter. It matters to some individuals, but not everyone. And so we can't put that on there and create a rule around these things. And so all the cannot change things is usually a misunderstanding. 9 times out of 10, the client has misunderstood why they're having an issue, or they're blaming something that's easy to blame but doesn't actually matter that much. So that's how we work on that list. And then the list that you can change, well, that's easy. That's where self-development comes in. You start working on these things. But in that list of things you can change, I want to split that into 2 more lists. So you take those things and you go, which of these would I accept in my best friend or my partner, but I'm not accepting it myself? Anything that you come up with that you would accept in your best friend or your partner, but you're not accepting in yourself, now you got to be a little careful, because now you're doing that thing that humans do where we criticize ourselves more than anything. Truth is, if you would accept something in someone that you would spend most of your time with, it doesn't actually bother you. You simply think it's a problem because you want to be perfect and you think you should have handled these things. This is where a lot of people come up with things like, oh, well, I'm usually late for things. Oh, would you have a problem if your friend was late for it? No, that's not an issue. Okay, well, cool. Then let's put that on the back burner. That's not important. We can work on that later on. Anything that you come up with anything you come up with about yourself that you would not accept in a friend or a partner, these are the things to focus on. This is where you start your self-development journey. This is where you start working on. So this is an exercise that we've been doing for many years. And our friend Johnny Saporno, who you talked about, also does this exercise in his own way. But it's a really simple way to start identifying what should we be giving our attention and what can we ignore, or what should we give our attention now and what can we put on the back burner for later. And these things aren't about choosing the social skills or whatever that you think is going to get you the furthest, fastest. It's about choosing the ones that you feel less happy with or the least happy with about yourself. Our goal isn't to make you Superman. Our goal is to make you fall in love with yourself. Because when you love yourself, women will be attracted to you like nobody's business. But if you have this list of things that you don't like about yourself and you're being too hard on yourself, you're listing things that you can't deal with anyway, or you're focusing on the wrong things, women are going to sense that you're not very happy with yourself. And if you're not enjoying yourself, why should them?
Very interesting. Okay, very interesting. And do you get a lot of guys asking you about a variety of ways to meet women? Like, do you coach them for online dating? Do you coach them for night game and day game, or the specifics?
Yeah. So my philosophy is that dating or seduction or whatever you want to call it isn't a skill that we turn on and off. It's a lifestyle. And to me, that means that you should be comfortable meeting strangers no matter where you are, no matter what you do. So I tend to coach people on, the things that they're already doing or the things that they want to do. So if you're a guy who hates going to bars and nightclubs, you have no interest in that environment, well, all right, we'll skip that one because you never do that anyway. I'm not going to make you start doing something you don't enjoy just to meet women, because there's going to be women around you all the time. So I do the whole gambit. I do the day game and night game and everything in between. And online dating I call a lazy man's dating. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's what you do when you can't do anything else. If If you want to meet women, well, then walk outside and meet women. Don't sit at home on a Saturday afternoon meeting women on your phone. That's what you do when you can't do anything else. So you want to get the real life skills. And so I work with people on what they do. If you both go out to the bars and you go to the store, grocery store every now and then, and you like going to the park, well, that's great. We have 3 venues right now, 3 arenas that we can work on. And so it's related to that, a lot of people are like, well, I got to get in the right state. And so I only meet women when I go out. I have so many people come to me, especially, what we call recovering pickup artists, the people from the pickup community who have been like specialized in going to the clubs and the bars to meet girls. And when I start talking about, well, if you sit down on the bus and there's a cute girl next to you, you should be able to talk to her, whether you're happy and excited or you have a headache and you just got fired and your cat died this morning. You should be able to talk to her no matter what state you're in. So let's get over states. Let's get over the idea that we have to prepare to go out and meet women. Let's get over everything that kind of puts meeting women or dating into this box with a switch that we turn on when we're ready, and then the rest of the time it's on default off. Meeting women should be happening all the time, or meeting people should be happening at all times. You go to the store, chit chat a little bit with the people in line. You're at a concert, you talk to the people around you. It doesn't matter. You cultivate that habit. Now you're going to have so many encounters with strangers that even if you're not going out to actively find cute girls to walk over and talk to, you're going to end up in a lot of conversations with women you find attractive just because they were around you, and it's a normal thing for you to do.
So do you teach any, I guess, strategies or tactics as opposed to just simply being, straightforward and direct? Because I think you're going to see people will feel that, sometimes just sort of saying ordinary things doesn't necessarily work.
Sure. So I am a pragmatic at heart. So I love tasks. My coaching clients have tasks from every week we work together. They, talk one day, we give them 2 or 3 tasks to work on the next week later, and next session we go through them again. I am a pragmatic, and I do like those things, and I'll share some with you. But I always preface it by saying, a technique is just a tool to help you get started. Once you get to the point where you're not having any trouble having conversations, creating tension, and escalating, you should forget as many techniques as you can and simply do what comes naturally to you. The best conversations with women are the ones where afterwards you're not really sure what you did because you weren't thinking about it. You were just in the moment doing it. But that being said, you're absolutely right. 9 out of 10 people who I work with and I talk to about this, they're like, yes, but what do I do? Because I can't just walk over and talk about the weather, right? And so I have some core principles. I'll give you the 2 core principles that I have. And then basically everything else is built on top of those 2 core principles. So the first core principle is you never, ever, ever walk over to a woman to show her that you're good enough or attractive enough or funny enough or smart enough or whatever. You should only ever have a conversation with anyone, including the women that you find incredibly attractive physically, to figure out if she's interesting to you, if you actually like her as a person. Now, this is a hard one for a lot of guys because a lot of guys are like, well, if she's hot enough, I just want to, I just want hot women in my life, or I just want women in my life. I don't care. The truth is you do. If you walk over to a girl who looks perfect, who's your dream woman, physically speaking, and you start talking to her and she starts talking about, infant killing and whatever else, you should not be interested in her anymore, no matter how hot she is. And most of you would. And so when you have this core principle in place, which is about walking over to figure out, all right, she's physically attractive enough for me. Let's find out if as a person, she's still attractive to me. It becomes really easy to build conversations on that because now you're being curious. And once you start figuring out what you actually like in people, you can design conversations around that. And running out of things to say becomes difficult after a while. And also, things like escalation is a test for this. I don't know about you guys, but I only want to be with women who want to be with me. And so when I'm talking to a woman and I'm thinking, I think I like this girl, let's see if she likes me. Me then, going for the kiss or whatever, that's a test more than anything else. I'm not putting anything online because what I'm doing is seeing if she's going to respond and show me that she is someone that I'm genuinely interested in because she's interested in me. Now, there's a bunch of things that we can play around with in there, but I'll give you an example that is something that most guys don't do. Most guys, when they speak to women, are very trying to figure out what the woman wants. They're trying to figure out what she enjoys speaking about. And when the conversation turns to something they don't enjoy, they will still have that conversation with her as long as it looks like she's, at least a little bit amused or entertained. So what I do is I encourage guys to turn that upside down. Whenever something's not working for you, whether you're the one saying it and it's just falling flat and you're not comfortable with this, or it's getting boring, or she's talking about something that you're not interested in, voice that. Never voice it as you're boring, I don't like you, because that's just being a dick. But if you're speaking to a woman and you guys end up talking about, politics, and you don't care about politics, then voice that. Say, you know what? Actually, I don't really care about politics. I want to get to know you better. And then you follow up with something that you know that you're interested in to see if she responds to that. So it makes it really easy. You can literally do this 10 times in a conversation. It doesn't matter. Something comes up, you start talking about something, go, wow, this is a good band. And she starts talking about music. You go, you know what? I don't actually want to talk about music. I'd like to talk about you. I want to get to know you better. You turn it back on her. It's a very simple little technique that makes it really hard to run out of content or conversation. And as long as you keep talking about stuff that's interesting to you, anytime you find something that she's also interested in, well, that's a whole conversation itself that's going to be both, build a lot of rapport and build a lot of tension and interest. So that's one example of a technique that I'm basing off of the course that I work with guys on.
Well, how about expand that a little bit into how do you, I guess, coach guys to, become more intimate with women?
Okay. So there's this idea, I feel, that escalation, whether that's just cuddling and physical touch, or it's kissing, or it's sex, is it's a close. In the seduction community, they talk about closing all the time, and it's also there's books written about how to ask for the number. There's books written about how to go for the kiss, and there's so many things that people get up in their head that people forget one very simple fact, and that's deep down we're all animals. Humans have been around for millions and millions of years. We've had logic for a few thousand, maybe 50,000, kind of close to what we have now. We have had modern logic and modern society for a few hundred years. And people are really caught up in this idea that they need to, for example, know when to go for the first kiss. They need to know when the girl's ready. They need to see the signs. They need to, she has to twirl her hair or point her feet towards him, or any of these things. So the first thing I do to coach guys on this part of escalation or intimacy is to start letting go of everything that you're looking for, everything you need to see, everything that you think you're waiting for. I many years ago, when I first started talking about this, I went online and I was looking for the signs that guys should look for to see if a girl's interested. And we've all seen these lists. Hell, I've written a few before I realized this myself. And I went online and I decided that anything that I see in 3 places or more that are not personal blogs, but like magazines or books or whatever, any sign I can find in 3 places or more in one afternoon, I spent like 4 hours doing this, I'm writing it down. And I came up with I think it was 57 different, it was either 57 or 75. I can't remember. It's a long time ago. It was those 2 numbers. Let's say 57 different signs to look for. Now imagine if you're sitting in a conversation with a woman that you're attracted to and it's going well, and you're looking for 1 out of 57 signs or several of 57 signs. You're not gonna do that. You're gonna miss most of them because you're not gonna remember them in the moment. And if you're super brain and you can remember all of them, you're gonna be too busy thinking about them to actually notice what's going on. So the thing that I coach guys on is starting to follow their instincts, if you will, because instincts have been around for millions of years. Every single forefather we ever had the instinct of when a woman was ready to copulate, and so it's in there. And anytime we have that little sense of the thought of maybe possibly she wants to kiss me now, well, that's our instincts yelling loudly enough to be heard through all our layers of bullshit logic that we've been taught in our modern society and in the seduction community to look for and listen for. And so guys find this really interesting experience when they start trusting their instincts. And I tell them, do this as an exercise for all things. You have an inkling of something, an instinct of something, just do it, just experiment with it, go for it, see what happens with everything in life. And suddenly that voice starts getting a lot louder, and you start trusting it, and you start hearing it. Now, that's easy to say, of course, and this is one of those cases that every time not every time, 8 out of 10 times I talk about it, and people go, well, yeah, that's easy to say, but what do I do? Where's the technique, right? So the technique that you can play with for this is really easy. Start by poking. I'm not literally talking about poking the girl, but I'm talking about doing little teases. If if you're hesitant to escalate, if you're afraid to become intimate, if you're afraid to go for the kiss, you're afraid to bring her home and undress her and all of these things, well, start with little things. You're standing next to her at the bar, you guys are talking about something, then reach down and just kind of tap your fingers on her fingers for a moment, see what happens. Very often she'll grab yours, or you look at you and smile, and you can just smile playfully back and keep doing what you were doing. No one needs to know, just between you and her. Standing next to each other, you bump her a little bit, or your feet are resting against each other on the table while you're with your friends or whatever. Just rub her foot, just like a little bit. Don't be the creepy guy that's like trying to foot flick. Just like a little bit, just a couple of touches, nudges, and see what happens. And start trusting your gut on when should I do it. So you can literally sit, and this is something that a lot of my clients have played with. You can literally sit at a party or around the table at the bar or wherever it is, and you have a girl next to you, and just go quiet and listen to yourself for a minute and go, I'm going to touch this girl, but I'm going to wait till the moment where I feel like maybe now, and I'm going to do it then. And what you're doing is training that instinct. And so you're all having conversations. You have your hand close enough to her. Don't be hover hand creepy. Put it down somewhere, and then listen to yourself. And when you kind of go, oh, maybe now, and it's scary and you don't know if it's right or not, that's when you do it. Just reach over and poke her a little bit, or nudge her with an elbow, or something that creates that little interaction. Most of the time, she'll either nudge back or look at you, or do nothing. And that's wonderful. Both of those are wonderful. That's exactly what you want. If she pulls away, well, then you were off. And that's fine, because you only did a little bit. It wasn't a big deal, so you can back off. Hang out for a few more minutes, try it again. A lot of times, this is what blows people's mind. A lot of times my clients are like, well, yeah, it's because I touched her, I squeezed her thigh or something, and she pulled away, and I felt really bad about it. But I did what you said, and I waited for like 5 minutes or so. I listened to myself again, and the moment it came, I did it again, and this time she smiled at me. Did she start liking me in those 5 minutes? No. Your timing was just better. You were trusting your instinct, and your instinct was telling you when it was right. And the first time your instinct was wrong, or you weren't actually listening to it, and the second time you were. And this goes very quickly from those little playful interactions to, I think I might be able to kiss this girl. I think she might want to kiss me. And when you get that feeling, you listen to it and you go for it. And if she does not want to kiss you, that's fine. All she's going to do is pull back, turn her cheek or something, and you simply go back to doing whatever you were doing right before that kiss. Don't go, oh, I'm sorry, or don't freak out and run away. Simply go back to doing whatever you were doing right before that and act like that was not a big deal. And very quickly, it will not be a big deal.
I guess I'm curious about what other sort of issues you find you coach guys about mostly, other than what we've talked about so far.
Sure. So for a lot of guys, it really boils down to thinking that they're good enough, or not thinking, knowing that they're good enough for whatever they want. So obviously I work with relationships and dating and all that, but I also work on many different subjects, and I do corporate work. I work with CEOs. I work with, and no matter what area I'm in, it tends to be, people have the how do I do questions. What should I be doing? How should I be doing it? And they want the techniques, and they want the learning, and they want all of that. And that's great. Those are good tools to help people get started. But when I really go deep with clients, which is basically all I try to do, it ends up being that thought of, I'm not whatever enough to have whatever. They want, the perfect relationship with the perfect girl. They want multiple relationships, or they want, $1 million, or they want whatever it is I want in their life. And they have a belief in their head that is holding them back, or rather a lack of belief in their head. And so an incredible amount of cases, even people who come, like one of my clients, one of my previous clients, incredibly successful guy, more money than I'm probably going to ever make in my life. And he had a good relationship with his wife, and him and his wife were open, and they had been their entire relationship, but he could not meet women except if he, showed off his fortune, and he didn't want those kind of women. And so with him, it got back to the idea, like he was a confident, successful, he had all the merits, everything you look at, and people go, oh, if I had that, my life would be perfect. But he still had that belief deep down that women wouldn't accept him for who he was, despite all of these things. For him, it traced back to the idea that, wanting to have more of something than other people had was a bad thing. Wanting to have more partners than one was a bad thing. And he wasn't good enough to do that, because only rock stars could do that. And I see this too. The guys who don't want to approach, they're terrified. scared of not being good enough for the woman. So we turn that upside down. And once they really understand why it's important to go over and see if the woman's good enough for them, once they do some of the exercises, like the identity exercise that I did earlier or explained earlier with the lists of yourself, and we really go deep and fix these things, everything else, well, not everything else, but a lot of other things tend to solve themselves. Not long ago, I worked with a guy who is a seduction coach himself. And he had all kinds of issues. He was a great coach. He was meeting women, but not the kind of women he wanted. And he had all of these issues too. We solved that. Not only did he start meeting more women and having better relationships, but he got a promotion at work. He started having a much more enjoyable time with friends. He felt more confident and more at ease, and things flowed much easier for him. So you solve those underlying problems, a lot of things go away. And that's basically what I try to do. And that's what I spend most of my time coaching guys on, is really solve those ideas that you can't have or you're not good enough. Once that's done, most things are done.
I'm assuming you also coach women, and I think a lot of guys end up sort of getting a lot of insight from hearing women and having sort of the other side of the problem.
Mm.
And I guess I'm curious what sort of insights you might be able to offer from some of your coaching you might have done with women.
That's a great question. I have one of my favorite things that I always share, especially when I do workshops and stuff, and it's what I call the great misunderstanding. And I discovered this, actually, this wasn't with a female client, but this was a friend of mine, female friend. We were out, and since then I've been sharing it with both men and women that I coach, and both parties are like, really? That's how it works? And in the industry, in our industry, a lot of people have started catching on to this, but there's still a lot missing. So the great misunderstanding happened. I was out with a friend of mine, and she was the kind of girl who, enjoyed getting around and meeting interesting guys, and she was very confident about it, had the same kind of open relationships as I did. And we're out at a bar, and I see her talking to this guy, and I can see, like, I've known him for years. I can see her type, and I can see her being a little blushy and like liking the guy. And before 3 minutes, she's back at my table. And I go, what happened? You're talking to this guy. And she goes, oh, I got so stressed out. I didn't know what to say. And so he lost interest and he left. I was like, that sounded weird. I don't know. So I walk over to the guy. I didn't know the guy. I walked over to him and basically go, hey, this is going to sound really weird, but I have a question I'm hoping you can help me with. He's like, what's going on? And so, well, I saw you talking to that girl over there. I didn't tell him that it was my friend. So you're talking to that girl over there. And I thought it was going really well. Like, it looked like she was into you. And obviously she's gorgeous. You were probably into her. What happened? And he said, well, no, she wasn't interested because she didn't give me any eye contact. She kept looking down and over at her friends, and her answers were like one syllable answers. She wasn't really giving me anything. So I didn't want to bother her. And he walked off. So this happens all the time. I see this where guys think that the girls are not interested, when what's actually happened is that the girl likes him, but she's getting nervous. Most men think that women don't get too nervous when we approach them. They think that the women are just sitting there and kind of taking their pick and testing us and having playing all these games and making sure that comparing us in their head to the other guy and whatever. They think women are in full control, but women are terrified and just as terrified as we are and get really nervous. And so men walk over, a girl likes him, but she gets nervous and doesn't know what to do. He reads that as disinterest because it's hard to see the difference before you actually know that the difference exists. And women think that men lose interest when this happens because they are stupid, like the woman couldn't contribute enough and he lost interest in her. While in reality, it's as simple as none of them actually said, hey, I like you. And if we get better at expressing this, and you don't have to say it directly, hey, I like you, you can do many things to show a woman that you're having a conversation with, and she's kind of looking down, giving you very short answers, not really engaging. Well, it's a really easy thing to just go, hey, I'm a little nervous talking to you. I don't know. I'm mumbling a little bit and I'm starting to feel a little freaked out. How are you feeling? And if women are nervous, they will love that because they'll go, oh yeah, I don't know. I got a little embarrassed myself. Okay, cool. Well, then we're both in the same boat. Let's just power through it and we'll get out on the other side. So this is one of the big things where women and men don't understand each other. Women think that the men who approach them always are in control and know what they're doing and are confident and can read the situation perfectly. And men think that the women everywhere do the same thing. Well, the truth is we're all insecure. We all have our issues. We all get nervous, especially when there's someone we like. And when we start noticing that women do that, we're going to walk away from a lot fewer conversations that are going to work out for us.
I think what you described of her reaction there, of sort of looking down and giving one-word answers, that's basically she was just shy, and she
Yeah.
was the one that was feeling, I guess, not confident in the situation because she really liked the guy. Now, I guess one thing I've learned about women is that they are very experienced in turning guys down. But when
Mm.
they like the guy, they really become out of control. They don't know what to do.
Oh yeah, you're right on the money, and that's perfectly said. If a woman wants to get rid of you and she has any confidence at all, oh, she knows how to get rid of you. But if she really likes you, oh, she will break. My wife works in the medical field, smart as a whip. She models and dances for fun on the side of it. She's an amazing woman, and she meets a guy that she likes. Oh, she turns into a giggling little shy schoolgirl and won't even look in his direction because maybe he'll look back. And it's hilarious to me to see this confident, strong woman have that reaction. But so many of them do. Because when a woman likes a man, she's putting a lot on the line. For us guys, we're supposed to be rejected. Like, that's an accepted fact in the world. We go out to a bar and we talk to women. Of course, we're going to get rejected. Everyone does. Now, guys will still make fun of each other for it, but that's kind of the built into our culture. But women aren't supposed to get rejected. Women are told their whole life that every man will only want one thing from her, will want to, take her to bed, will want to have sex with her, will want to grab her and make her his. And so if she meets a man who doesn't want that, that's basically that man showing her that, that thing that everyone your entire life has been telling you that you have that's so great, well, it sucks. I don't want it. And that's horrible for them. It's a horrible experience. So most women get really nervous and uptight when they really are turned on by someone or attracted to someone. And so as a man, it's also our responsibility to ourselves and the relationship to be there. When we show up, we stay and we engage, and we only leave when we lose interest or when we're confident that this girl actually doesn't want to talk to me, and it's not that she's being shy, she's actually trying to, pull away.
So have you had issue? Have you been coaching women that find that they just don't know what to do when they're interested in guys, and how do you help them get over this, because they're obviously pretty uncomfortable, and I think society also sort of teaches women consciously or unconsciously that men are supposed to be the ones that take the lead, and a lot of guys, of course, don't take the lead when they should, and here they are, interested, and they don't really know what to do, and they're all of a sudden tongue-tied.
Yeah. Well, firstly, with men and women, the same kind of that I've been talking about already, the underlying psychological causes are still there. So I do a lot of that same work with them. I walk them through, their issues and their internal programming, their comfort zone, challenging that, and all of that. But when it comes to the actual, how do I go about it? Because of the expectations are different. It's expected that guys take the initiative. It's expected that guys start the conversation, escalate, and do all of those things. And one of the things that we always talk about is that, as men, we're supposed to escalate. Women tend to think all they need to do is make themselves available for escalation. So when I teach guys, I tell them this. I tell you gotta, your job is to escalate. And if the woman is around you and keeps sticking around, she wants you to escalate, so that's your job, and she's doing her job, which is stay present. With women, however, I don't tell them the same thing. I tell them that I tell the guys this, but women is one of the things that tend to help them a lot is getting to the point of understanding that men won't judge you. Well, sorry, let me rephrase that. Worthwhile men won't judge you for knowing what you want. Now, there are douchebags out there and insecure guys who will judge you for knowing what you want, but you don't want those guys anyway. That's like a guy walking over to a girl who's, a gold digger or uppity and bitchy or whatever. We don't want them, so they exist, but we're going to ignore them. And for women, it's about realizing that, well, would you like to be with a guy who accepts you for who you are, including you walking over to him and saying, hi, what's your name? And he thinking that is really cool. Or would you like to be with a guy who will never accept that you initiate anything? And all women immediately know which one they want. They want the guy who will accept her, because they start thinking about being in a relationship with a guy that if they suggest, let's go to this restaurant, he won't accept it because it was her idea. He wants to be in control. That's a control freak. So women need to recognize that. And then, there's tons of exercise and techniques we can use, but a lot of it is about training to voice your opinion or desire in any case, any situation in your life. So We'll start the ones that are the most shy. We'll start them out with their friends and just saying things they wouldn't say to their friends, or in meetings at work or school. And then moving on to simply giving a compliment. The thing that women don't recognize is if they see a guy that they go to school with, or they see at a bar and they go, wow, I really like your jacket. To a woman, that's giving a compliment. Women can do this with each other all the time, and it's just a thing to do. To men, a girl says that to us, well, that's her taking an initiative to start a conversation. So honestly, I kind of trick my female clients into doing it this way. And then they usually come back a week or two later and they go, you tricked me. I just figured that out, because every time I give a compliment to a stranger, he starts talking to me. I'm like, good. Well, congratulations. Now you know how to start a conversation with the guys that you want to meet.
I think the experience of a lot of guys today is that it's very difficult to connect with a woman. Women are in general, I think men's perception is that women are extremely elusive, that they've got multiple choices, and that there's a lot of talk these days of ghosting, about how women just disappear on you right away. I think that a lot of guys are feeling that just women are just either so demanding or something. But now my impression from our discussion here is that that's really not your personal experience, and that may be because the way that you come across and the way that your experience with women is different from the average guy. And I don't know if that's just something that you evolved to, or if it's just something that's just naturally happened that way because that's the way you started off and kept up with women. But
I definitely evolved to that point, and so do my clients. So I completely understand what you're saying, and I mean, I've heard that all over. When I moved to the US, I got so many people, telling me that, oh yeah, you've got your work cut out for you, because I know how you talk about the Norwegian girls, but the American girls are different. They're flaky and they ghost on you, and so I got that whole thing. And of course, I knew American girls already, but I started working with American clients, and I found that it was exactly the same thing as in Norway. So my take on it is really simple. You get what you put out there. If you play games with women, they will play games back, and they will beat you, because they will be better at it than you are. If a woman feels like you're not being genuine with her, you're not being authentic, she will not feel bad about ghosting you, because she feels like you're not showing up anyway. So you're not showing up as you, so she might just as well not show up at all. So don't get me wrong. Before I go into this, there's definitely women out there who will, ghost on a really great guy who's showing up and being genuine and authentic and all that. Hey, it happens to me too. It happens to my friends. It happens to my clients. Just the same way as there are plenty of guys out there who will ghost on a girl once he's gotten what he wants, or once he figures out that that's going to be too much work. So there are individuals out there in both genders who do this and who are what, people describe. But as an overall, women are not that. What women are, to some extent, are mirrors. They will mirror the relationship that you're creating with them. And so if you're creating a relationship where you're playing games, or where you're coming off as inauthentic, or where, you're trying to get one over on her, or she feels like that, then you're going to run into a lot of women who just ghost and stop answering, or ignore you, or play games with you, or keep you waiting for her, and all of this stuff. But once a woman sees that that's not the guy that you are, two things tend to happen. One, she reacts very powerfully to that, because most men are not authentic with women. Most men try to hide who they are, or at least parts of who they are, from women, because they've been taught that, you shouldn't show weakness, or you shouldn't show this, or you shouldn't do that. When a woman sees a guy who doesn't do that, who's unashamedly himself, that's incredibly interesting. And interest usually turns into attraction. And the second thing that happens is that the moment she starts thinking about, ghosting on you, and you've been nothing but upfront and honest with her from the start, she's going to start feeling really bad about not being upfront and honest with you back. So even if it's not in her nature, there's a higher chance that she will at least text you and say, sorry, this isn't working out. But I've worked with, I've done this for over 10 years. I worked with so many guys who come in with that attitude. As I talked about earlier, one of the things I work with a lot is helping guys bridge that gap that they think exists between men and women. And I've had so many guys come in being bitter, or aggressive, or having that feeling about women. Women suck, but I want them. And by the end of our time working together, going, oh, I get it now. All right, cool. Thank you. That I spent most of my life believing that women were aliens, but they're actually just like me. They just have different body parts and slightly different ways of behaving. So yeah, you get what you give, and it takes practice, especially for someone who is used to pushing women's buttons, or someone who's not used to unashamedly showing him his whole self. Because I know there's great guys. I'm sure there are great guys listening to this right now disagreeing with me, because they're a great guy and they're always honest and they're always trying to be be themselves. But I guarantee if you have a problem with a lot of women ghosting on you, or not showing up, or being flaky, or any of these things, it's because they're picking up on the things that you're trying to hide from them, whether that's your insecurities or your frustrations or your whatever can be perceived as weakness, or whether you're just following a few of the rules that you've learned too closely and it's not really you. Women are really good at seeing who's being authentic and who's not. This is why women give that advice, just be yourself all the time, because they understand what that means. They can see and feel when a guy is being himself fully and when he's not. We guys can't do that. So the advice doesn't make sense to our experience, but it makes perfect sense to women's experience.
I think a lot of guys, like you said, don't realize that they're not being authentic, and they just cannot understand how women are, I guess, giving them a bad reaction. They they just simply aren't connecting with the fact that they are somehow or other off in the way they're coming across, and that's a very difficult thing, a difficult gap to bridge when you don't think you're doing anything that is inauthentic.
It is, and that's one of the biggest challenges that men face, is really understanding what that means, and how to be fully authentic. It's one example. I was talking to someone the other day, and he said, "Well, if I'm being authentic all the time, people get upset with me." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, "Well, I mean, I have a lot of controversial thoughts, or if a girl asks me if I like her dress and I don't, when I tell her no, I don't like your dress, she gets upset with me." And I go, "Oh, okay. Well, you're talking about being honest. That's a different thing." Now, honesty and authenticity go hand in hand in a lot of cases, but you can be completely authentic without being honest. Careful about this, though. What I mean by that is not start lying. What I mean by that is learn how you express things, and learn how to express things the best. When my wife shows up in an outfit that I don't like, I won't tell her I don't like that outfit when she asks me. I might tell her, "Well, not my favorite, but you look great in it," because she looks great in everything, in my opinion. I just don't like the outfit. So I can give her a compliment about it. I don't have to say, "No, that sucks. Makes you look fat." Not that anything does. But so authenticity isn't, for men, we're very logically programmed. We're looking for the facts. So, okay, authentic, I just need to be honest all the time. I meet a girl I like and she's got nice boobs. If I need to be authentic, I have to tell her that. No, you don't. Being authentic is learning who you are and doing the things that you want to do, not holding back, not limiting yourself, not censoring yourself in terms of what do I want to do, how do I want to proceed, what kind of conversation do I want to have, not limiting yourself, showing people who you are through your actions and your conversations, rather than showing up and thinking. If you're being strategic in a conversation, you're not being authentic. It's great to learn techniques and aids to better your communication. It's great to go out and practice those. It's wonderful to go out and have, I'm going to have a night now. I'm going to practice tension. I'm going to practice building tension with this technique. And you go out and you do that technique 70 times. That's wonderful. But in those conversations, you're probably not being very authentic, but that's okay because they're practice. But when you go out and actually have conversations, when you meet someone, when you do that technique and then you're having a conversation with someone, well, you've done that technique. You're done practicing. Shut that off and just be present. Trust that instinct that I was talking about earlier, and you're going to start seeing completely different reactions from women. Women like authentic men. They don't like games, and they don't like men who are being strategic or seem to be planning everything out in their head before they does it, because that's weird.
Well, I think you've shared a lot of very interesting perspectives tonight. I guess for those watching this, and if they wanted to follow up with you in terms of either coaching, or I don't know if you have any products, but why don't you tell them about what you have to offer for anybody who would like to follow up with you?
Sure. So for my dating coaching and relationship coaching, especially, I'm kind of weird because I almost only work with referrals. So I don't have a dating coaching website. I don't have a Facebook page. I don't have any of that stuff. all my clients that I work with come to me either through finding me via various means or through referrals. But for anyone on Cliff's List, I'll be more than happy to talk to you. So it's really easy. You go to my corporate site, which is imagineinsight.com, INSIGHT, imagineinsight.com. That's my corporate site. There's a contact form there. You can message me there. Or TJ Guttormson on Facebook. That's my general interest, psychology, fact, fun fact page. You can message me via that page. Now, I have a very, very clear rule about my clients. I only ever sign a client after I've worked with them at least once for free. So if you're at all interested in working with me, what's going to happen is you reach out and you let me know, and we're going to set up a free coaching call, and we're going to run through that, and I'm going to coach you as best as I can, because I only want to work with people who respond to my coaching. So I'm going to coach the hell out of you in that hour. And if by the end of that hour, I still want to work with you and you want to work with me, then we can talk about long-term coaching. But before that, I'm not even going to talk about any of that stuff with anyone. But if you just want to check out more of my stuff and not necessarily sign up for that coaching call, go to join.imagineinsight.com. That'll put in your email and your name so I know who you are, and they'll bounce you to a free growth zone training that I have. So this is based off of the traditional model of the comfort zone, except the comfort zone isn't quite fully explained, especially not in the seduction community. So I'm adding another thing on there, and the growth zone is what you want to get good. When you're good at playing in your growth zone, you're going to start, reaching your goals and learning the techniques and mastering things much faster than anything. So that's completely free. Join.imagineinsight.com. You go on there and you will immediately get access to that training, which is part of a bigger online program that I have. But this training in particular is free. It comes with a task at the end that you can go out and really do to learn these things. And it's the example that I give is about approaching women, but you can adapt this to basically anything in your life. And I'll say this too. I'm about to put out my revised, updated version of my multiple relationship ebook. And I'm going to sell that for about $10 or so. But anyone listening to this, if you go to imagineinsight.com and the contact form, you contact me, you say you want that ebook, I'll send it to you for free because it's not really online yet. So I'll give it to you guys. You'll be my test audience for the updated version, and I won't charge you anything for it.
Well, that's very generous, and definitely on behalf of Cliff's List readers, I'm sure we appreciate the offer. And I appreciate the time that you've spent, and it was good talking with you again. And
Absolutely.
We'll definitely have to do this again sometime soon.
I look forward to it, and I hope to see you back in Vegas again soon. It's been a while since we've been out. It was last year I saw you, right? A year and a half ago almost.
That's right.
So, yeah, hopefully.
This year was a little tough for me, so I wasn't able to make it. But next year,
Fair
maybe.
Enough. Sounds good.
All right. Good talking with you. We'll talk again soon.
All righty. Thank you.